There was a house in Burpkins every child knew to steer clear of. Nobody really knew why they had to steer clear of the residence. They just had an understanding that they should never tread anywhere near the ugly brown manor that belonged to the Old Hag, under any circumstance. And this odd aversion was something that bugged Troy, and he wouldn't shut up about it whenever he and his friends discussed the possible reasons why the Old Hag abode was off limits to adults and children alike. I heard that they once enslaved all the kids in the entire town a century ago, and she used them, one by one, for rituals to keep her alive for another 10 years. Damon gossiped to the rest of the baseball team that bothered to listen to him in the locker room. That must have been terrifying. No wonder why she looks so shriveled up and still refuses to die, another gossip monger replied in foxwander. God only knows how many children she must have sacrificed to live this long. Nonsense! Troy boomed, as he couldn't stomach the sick rumors anymore. The design of a human from the onset was to live a ripe old age of 120 years. I'm not even sure the person y'all are calling Old Hag has even lived up to 90. And y'all are already castigating her to hell just because she's old, when all she really needs is love, care, and kindness. She's not just some old woman, my man, Damon replied convincingly. She's like the Ancient of Days or something. And if I were you, I wouldn't step 1 foot anywhere near her to offer help, because you're most likely going to end up barbecued and somewhere in her digestive system. Troy was sincerely sick and tired of all the hatred for the Old Hag. It wasn't like he felt connected to her in any way. He just hated the idea that he had been instilled in every kid in the neighborhood to be wary of old people. He always wanted to prove that all these people needed was to be seen as the harmless and vulnerable people they really were. And Troy thought it was finally time to let go of his childish fears to just do that. I'm gonna prove to y'all that the hag is just an ordinary old woman, and her residence is free for all to pass by and even enter, Troy announced to the rest of his teammates in resolute determination. The eyes of the other team members widened to the size of quarters at his declaration. But he was not done yet. I'm going to visit the Old Hag this weekend, and I want to make a bet. Should I make it back? You all have to stop bad-mouthing the poor woman. And should I be wrong? Should I not make it back? Y'all are welcome to not tell anyone about my disappearance. And y'all get to piss and spit at my grave whenever it is that they finally get around to a funeral on my behalf. Damon, the gossip monger, snorted when Troy was done talking. Is that what you call a bet? He asked snarkily. How about we raise the stakes? If you come back from the hag's hunt alive, all of us will pool our allowances for the whole month and hand it over to you. We'll also follow you into her hut the next time you plan on going. But if you lose, we're setting the hag's house on fire, and we won't leave till it burns to the ground. We'll also carve your gravestone with whatever title you want from your foolish bravery. The terms seemed acceptable to Troy, and so he agreed, and then they all shook hands on it. The weekend approached just 2 days after the bet was made, and it came much quicker than Troy had expected. However, he was ready to face his fears and prove to whoever cared to know that the Old Hag was just a lonely old woman who didn't need to be demonized. After school, all the middle schoolers that were interested in the bet followed him halfway to the hag's house and then left him to forge ahead on the forbidden path on his own. They promised to wait 5 hours max for Troy to get back. If he hadn't returned, they would leave and come back in the morning and try to look for him. And if by noon of the next day they had found him, they would fork over his winnings from the bet. For the sake of him and the boys, Troy hoped it wouldn't take that long. The manor was tearing apart at the seams when Troy arrived in front of it after a short 100 yards walk down the forbidden path. The door looked broken and was left ajar, and it disintegrated a bit more when he attempted a knock on it. Some of the window panes on the ground floor were long gone, barring the rooms affected by the biting cold of the night. There was absolutely no source of illumination that came from inside, and even though Troy was scared shitless, he knew he'd come too far to quit. So against all the warning signs in his head, he turned on the flashlight on his phone and braved the remaining steps into the manor. Nothing on the inside was an improvement to the outside. The furniture was shattered, cobwebs hung like heavy curtains all around the room. Rats and other rodents scuttled around boldly. All of these made Troy wonder if anyone even lived in the house. "Hello?" he called at different intervals. But the only voice that replied to him was that of his echo. Troy thought more and more about the stupidity of his actions with each passing second. He should have known that the old hag had just been a scary tale that morphed into an urban myth. However, as he turned to go, he was faced by the legend herself in all of her blood-curdling glory. Troy realized that he couldn't have been more wrong, and not just about his most recent deductions. He quickly found out firsthand that the old woman really did feed on blood to survive, but she didn't wait for the long process of a ritual.
Subscribe today or beware.